Welcome to the commentary booth where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator Jam Yaps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by Impact Fee Technician, who lists their favourite movie as A Nightmare on Elm Street, favourite TV show as Golden Girls. Welcome back to the show, Corrina Mabey.
Hello. Hello.
She has yet to blow away, but could potentially mid-episode.
Yeah, I mean, if my power goes out, I'm sorry in advance. I've got a hurricane approaching my state right now. Woohoo. Hurricane party has started. I've got my alcohol. I've got cookies in the kitchen. I already ate dinner. So I'm ready. Like, that's the whole part of living in Florida is you have a hurricane snacks and everything.
Should you really be drinking? Isn't there a potential you'll get called into work?
That'll be tomorrow, and I'll be fine. And why don't we not call me out? How about that?
I didn't even think of that until just then. I was like, wait a second, she might have to go to work at some point.
No, they have to give me at least, I think, like 12 hours notice or something before I get called in. Because, yes, I can get called in to be on an emergency team where I get to sit in a building that's like probably as secure as, like, I don't know, the White House or something or close to it. And I'll never lose power or anything. But we'll see. That'll be fun. Other than that, I'm riding out my storm at my house with my dog and chilling and talking with you right now.
Is this his first hurricane? How's he dealing with it?
No, we had that other one last year or whatever that didn't really hit us, but kind of hit us. I don't remember what one it was. It's Florida. I was going to say, it's Florida. Sometimes our afternoon thunderstorms are actually worse than some of the hurricanes that we've gotten hit with recently. But anything's possible. I mean, this bitch is, it just got bumped up to a category 4 right before we started recording. And it hasn't even made landfall yet. So that's cool.
At least it's not tracking towards you. It's kind of up and away.
Yeah, but like we've had previous hurricanes. I think Charlie was one of them where it was projecting one way and then like very last minute it made a turn and decided to come straight across. And yeah. I mean, you know, it's weather, so y'all have like forest fires and shit, and
bushfires.
We have fuck off, which bullshit. Anyway, y'all have bushfires. We have fucking hurricanes, so it's, you know, tomato.
It's all right. Last week we had a bushfire that the fire service started.
Oh, good on them.
They were doing backburning, and then the wind came, and all of a sudden it was a full-blown bushfire, and they were like, "Oh, whoops!
Oh, we done fucked up." Yeah, we've had some control burns get out of hand, but nothing recently. So now we have like 100. I think the wind speed when this storm is supposed to hit like Tallahassee is going to be like close to 160 miles per hour. So you can do conversions for kilometers, but it's pretty massive.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's wide. It's a pretty wide storm, so that's why school was canceled today. Work was canceled today. So yeah. Good times. Come visit Florida. It's the Sunshine State.
Yeah, not at this time. No, thanks. I'm good. So this week we are once again tapping into Corrina's expertise by reviewing a true crime inspired thriller that took place not too far from her house. The events of this movie.
Yeah, Florida reckoned up.
So we're reviewing The Black Mass, which is set over a 24-hour period in Tallahassee, Florida, during the winter of 1978, when a group of college girls were being stalked by the serial killer Ted Bundy. In this movie, they never actually say Ted Bundy. He's just the protagonist character. And it kind of, that plays into the title of just, it's based on all of the descriptions of him just being like a black mass in the building.
Yeah.
But yeah, so before we dig into it, what did you think of The Black Mass?
I have a very strong dislike for this movie, but we'll get into that later. Overall, like, I mean, it's not terrible. It could have been better. I appreciate some of the artistic points of it. Spoiler, they never show really his face for the most part. They show like mainly side profiles of him, and I think maybe one or two full-on shots, but it's very like muffled looking in a sense. So I do appreciate that because they didn't have to really find someone who looked like Ted Bundy, whereas in previous adaptations of Bundy stories, they've had to find somebody who looks pretty dead on for him. So I think they got a little easy with that.
Yeah, because I think it's what they've done with this is instead of like basing it on, in hindsight, this is what happened. Like, obviously, a little bit of that comes into play, but it's
Yeah.
more based on the eyewitness reports. So it's like you're only getting glimpses of him, or you're getting like the back of him and like people recalling what they experienced, and you're seeing those people. So I did like that element of it where it's kind of, as a viewer, you're just basically like a fly on the wall, sitting on his shoulder, like coming along for this ride on this horrible, horrible experience.
It kind of reminded me of in A Violent Nature, where like you saw it from like the serial killer's perspective. So like parts of it reminded me of that kind of filming technique. So yeah, I mean it wasn't terrible. But I also made the mistake of watching this on my lunch break too, which probably wasn't the best idea.
Because this is a very intense
full
film.
on. It is, and I had not known that. So if I had known that ahead of time, because I thought it was just like a quick watch, like, oh, I can pop it on in the middle of my lunch, finish it when I get home, no big deal. And that was a very big mistake. So yeah, don't watch this at work on your lunch break because you will regret it. Unless you're in your car by yourself, that's cool. Isolate yourself watching this, but don't watch it in public.
I told you it was intense.
You didn't say how intense it was. What's intense for you is not necessarily intense for me.
Well, was I wrong? Was this intense? Yes. Was it
incredibly
triggering? Yes.
Yes, but like when you tell me that it's a Ted Bundy-esque movie, I don't expect it to be on like the level of like intenseness, like, gross elements and ick factors, and that's what it was. So yeah, whatever. Anyway.
I don't know. I did say it was like the Ted Bundy massacre, and there is that one sort of artistic scene that like really hypes it up and makes it like hyper intense. Like it's a moment where Ted is stalking the house and looking through the window at the girls, and he sort of has like a vision type thing, and hallucination of the girl like ripping her own skin off and eating her own skin and stuff, and like that scene is like, oh, that's intense. But for me, the most triggering scenes were like towards the end, the actual murders, rape.
Yeah, that was intense. But I don't know, like the in that hallucination sequence, he's like envisioning like fucking her headless corpse.
Yeah,
with his hand.
That is pretty full on.
Yeah, that's the biggest trigger for me. Like aside from the rape sequence, like that whole portion, like I said, I understand where they were going with it. It's a very artsy kind of film in that sense. But that was almost unnecessary for me to have it in there. It didn't do anything. Like it didn't add anything to it. I feel like it was just put in there for like one of those
it was a shock
factor kind of moments,
It did make you sort of think like, yeah, this guy's mega fucked up. But
yeah,
it was,
and like he was, but I feel like they intensified that. Like I think that they just took it to the extreme because he was smart and got away with a lot of shit before he got caught. So
yeah, he was definitely, he was obsessed with like violence and murder and sexual assault and stuff. Like even we see him like the comic books he's reading are all like serial killer stories. It's like, Jesus Christ. But It was those. It was that final like murderous rampage with the rape and stuff, and like the thing that really triggered me was one of the girls while she's being beaten and raped is like crying out for her mother. I was like, oh Jesus, that took it to the next level for me. Where I was like, okay, yeah, this is. I feel gross watching this at this point.
Yeah, I believe I think I told you I almost DNF'd this film. And I don't DNF movies very often. I think the last movie I actually DNF'd was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, because I got 20 minutes into that and I was like, I just can't. It was
That's
awful,
all right.
but
We'll get back to that when Winnie
no.
the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2 and the
And
Pinocchios.
that wasn't even like gross. It was just dumb. Like that movie was just stupid. It made me feel physically ill watching certain things. And like, I think the only other movie that kind of like this movie triggered me to the point where I got flashbacks of watching I Spit on Your Grave. And I've never actually seen the original version of that from like the 70s. I've only actually ever seen the remake of it from like I think the early 2000s, and that's a very very fucking intense movie that I can't go back and rewatch because of how disturbing and intense it actually is. So this movie almost did that for me. I DNF'd it because I knew, or I did not DNF it because I knew we had to review it. So you're welcome. Here I am. And yeah. It's a lot. Yeah, it's definitely a lot. It's very heavy content. So go into it knowing that, and don't be like thinking that it's not going to be that bad, because it is.
Yeah. The things that I did enjoy about it, like, was the fact that it doesn't like specifically ever say, "Oh, I'm Ted Bundy" or anything like that. It's kind of just it alludes to it, and then as it sort of does that over and over again, it gets to the point where it's undeniably based on the Ted Bundy rampage.
Mm-hmm.
And it does a great job of like portraying him as the charming, handsome man who can like lure all of these women into these deadly situations. And
Mm-hmm.
then it also contrasts that with him being this super creepy perv who like
Yes.
he's peering through windows, and then when he gets rejected becomes a total asshole.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the two sides of Ted Bundy. It's the one that gets him in these situations where he can commit these horrible crimes,
Yeah.
and then the side that commits these horrible crimes. It is clearly the one person.
And I give them credit for like not for definitely like making sure that they kind of stayed true to like different key factors, like his car, for instance. Like he had the punch buggy. So like sometimes when they do film adaptations of things, they're like, oh, let's put our own fucking twist on it, and then it's
Just
like,
put him in a muscle car or something cool.
yeah,
like,
and it's so stupid because it's like, I understand that you're trying not to like put it in your face like, hey, this is about Ted Bundy, but like you're gonna lose certain things if you change that kind of important factor. So I do appreciate that they did that. Like I said, the silhouette of him was really spot on. But again, if you have any like tallish kind of guy with like that generic haircut from back in the day, you're going to be able to get that effect. The fact that he was such an asshole when he did get rejected is just, that's how he was. You can see it from like different tapes and listening to his recordings and stuff. He thought that he was like the best thing in the world, and when he got rejected, he didn't like it. So yeah.
And like even before they like flat out reject him, he's just staring at them, and it's like, you are creepy and making everyone in this bar incredibly uncomfortable. Like, stop.
Yeah, and it's different than pardon me, than other things that I've done. Like I do appreciate that they also decided to just focus in on his one main like final hurrah, if you want to say,
Yeah,
before
the
he
thing that got him caught.
yeah, exactly. Whereas the previous, like there was a movie that came out before in I think the 80s, and then they had the Netflix series that also came out, and that was just like from beginning to end essentially like his start and his demise. So I like the fresh take on just focusing on his one major crime that got him screwed over essentially.
Yeah, there's the Zac Efron movie as well.
Zac Efron, it was like a mini series, I think.
Yeah,
That was really good. And then there was a movie that came out, I think in like the, I don't know, like maybe late 80s or early 90s with, I think it was Mark Hamill, or I don't remember his name. He's the guy that's in NCIS though. Like he plays the main guy in NCIS, Gibbs. He played Ted Bundy as well. And he did a really good job of, if you didn't know that, now you do.
Dramatic fucking character shift for that guy.
Yeah. Every time my mom watches NCIS, she's like, "Hey, look, it's Ted Bundy on TV," and I was just like, I forget he even did that. But yeah, he did a really great job. So just to see this kind of angle where you never see him really full on, like I said, it's a nice take on something. As so many people are doing serial killer miniseries, documentaries, movies in general. So it's nice to see that they're not just doing the whole start to finish life story about him.
I still think Dahmer is probably the best one we've had in a while.
Dahmer is amazing. I haven't watched Monsters, the twins yet, the Menendez brothers or whatever. I haven't started that yet. That just came out. From what I hear, they're not very happy about it. They've already been quoted as being very angry with.
Well, because weren't they eventually acquitted?
I think, I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure they eventually got off because they realized, like, oh, these kids were being mega abused.
I know that Kim Kardashian was involved with them too. Like, she visited them while they were in jail and stuff like that. And she's been like advocating. That's like the whole thing. Like, I know that she's been involved with that, and I'm just like, you went from a reality TV show to advocating for criminals.
Was her dad their lawyer? Maybe.
No, but I think it's maybe, I don't remember. I don't know all about it.
So I know her dad was OJ's lawyer.
OJ's lawyer. So just following in her dad's footsteps. She gets her fucking law degree, and now she thinks that she's her dad. I don't know.
Does she have a law degree? Surely not.
She does. Yeah, she does. She went to she passed the bar.
Wow.
I don't know. She passed the bar as far as I know. Yeah.
Who'd she pay for that?
I mean, it's Kim K. I give her props for trying to do her own thing after that whole Kanye shenanigans, because, but
yeah, that was something. It's all right. Yeah, she's been at P. Diddy parties, so she might not be around for much longer.
I mean, that's it. Hopefully she can be her own. She can represent herself, just like Bundy tried to do. Because, well, it didn't really work out too well for him, but maybe it'll work for her.
The other things I did find interesting in this was seeing him at the start of the movie planning the best day of his life as he's reading his serial killer comic books. I was like, oh my God.
I mean,
this is some best day of his life. Some best day of his life.
I mean, some people are like, oh, hey, my wedding day was the best day of my life. Some people are like, oh, hey, these days that I'm going to murder like an entire sorority full of girls is going to be the best day of my life.
And then like the fact that he, like, obviously his history, he did get caught but then escaped. But for a while there, he was getting away with all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he probably would have got away with this one too if he hadn't rushed it, because he saw that wanted poster and then he saw that and was like, shit, they're after me. I've got to bring this forward and do this right now.
Yeah, you fuck it up. Like,
that's why he got caught.
Yeah, and that's a reoccurring pattern. Obviously, is either they get cocky and think that they can just continue to do what they're doing and do it more frequently, and then they get caught, or they see something that's like, oh shit, like they're on my trail, like I've got to do something really quick just to get it out of my system, and then they get fucked up. So
yeah, like, old mate BTK who decided he was going to send letters to the police.
Yeah.
And then they eventually tracked it down, like, it was from this printer at this place, and yeah, he's the only person with access to that.
Yeah, people are dumb. I don't know. I was really hopeful that with the success of like Dahmer and the Ted Bundy tapes and stuff like that, I was really like going back to like Mindhunter kind of deal, like with their serial killer stuff. I was really hopeful that they would reboot that show or something like that, because it was so good to have like a show that wasn't dedicated to just one serial killer or a movie dedicated to just one. They just investigated all of them. So yeah, I don't know. I was optimistic, and I'm still optimistic that eventually maybe I'll get another season of Mindhunter. Someone will pick it up. If not Netflix, then maybe, I don't know, Amazon or something.
We are getting another Ryan Murphy serial killer story, though.
Who's the next one? I forget. Oh shit, what's his name? Oh, pardon me. Wasn't Charlie Hunnam was just cast, right?
Yeah. Monster Season 3, Ed Gein.
Okay. So
he's the guy that inspired the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that's going to be intense.
Yeah. Well, there's a ton of them out there. So Ryan Murphy, keep doing your thing, bro.
Like, looking at the Ryan Murphy ones, I'm kind of the Menendez brothers ones feels kind of out of place.
Lackluster.
In that sequence.
Yeah, it does kind of, because I feel like
Ed Gein, the Menendezes, who killed 2 people, and it was their abusive parents. Whatever.
If he had done like the Zodiac Killer, the Night Stalker, BTK, any
Green
of
River
them,
Killer.
Yeah. What's his face?
The one from California.
Gacy.
The Night
If he had done
Stalker.
Gacy. Yeah, Night Stalker. Like
heaps of other options, and then they went with those 2. I was like, what the
shit? He could have even done like Eileen Wuornos. Like, I would love to like see.
Come and do Ivan.
What?
Got to do Ivan.
Ivan.
Malat.
Oh.
The guy that inspired Wolf Creek.
Oh, for fuck's sake. I was like, you're going to talk about the Australian one, aren't you? Because y'all don't have very many serial killers over there.
He's the one. He's the one.
You drove me by that prison. I'll never forget that, because you were like, oh, hey, look, there's that prison where the Wolf Creek guy was. And I was like, what? Cool. You go, yeah, it's one of the few serial killers in Australia.
I could have taken you to the forest.
No, I'm good. I don't want to go into the outback and never come back.
You don't want to be head on a stick?
No, I'm good. I would rather get taken out by Skippy the kangaroo.
Hey, we take you out in the bush. It's a high potential.
It's a I was going to say, it's a high possibility. I'll get taken out by Skippy, or a fucking koala will land on my head and knock me out. So, I mean.
Or a dingo. Dingo took my baby.
Ay. Just come to Florida or the U.S. We have like the highest amount of serial killers, I think, of any other country.
Mm-hmm.
So at least we're in first place for something.
Are you a trading card collector or a fan of Australian pro wrestling? If so, you're not going to want to miss out on the limited edition Australian wrestling cards. Each set includes 50 packs of 10 cards, including some of the country's top wrestling talents like Robbie Eagles, Shane Haste, Madison Eagles, Hartley Jackson, and they have Shaza McKenzie listed, although she is not a favorite. The Velocities, and a lot more. There's wrestlers, referees, announcers, commentators that are featured, giving you a full appreciation of the Australian independent scene. The cards sold out a lot faster because cards are hot right now, as I'm sure Jeremy Lambert will tell you. But you can order your Australian wrestling cards now at Pario Magazine. That's PARIO magazine.com.au/AUSWRES cards. Follow Australian Wrestling Cards on social media at AusResCards for updates. Join the hundreds of fans who have already discovered the excitement of Australian wrestling cards.
The Black Mass, it has that very low budget TV movie feel as well.
Yes.
Which was fine. There were a few scenes where I was like, oh, that doesn't look good at all. Like, there's a few scenes where it's clearly a set, like the moment where he has a fight with that guy outside the like convenience stall strip mall thing. I was like, that's quite blatantly a backlot set.
Yeah.
When he's standing in front of the electronics store looking at all the TVs.
That's really bad.
Clearly green screened. Looks pretty poor.
Even the dorm room scenes, like when he's running through like the hallway of their dorm rooms, like that looks so bad. Like,
yeah, it's just a cheap set.
Yeah.
But like there are the cinematography wise, like they use a lot of extreme close-ups of him so you don't get a full view of his face, and then also of the women as well, which like really heightens that sense of his like infatuation with like the flesh. And then that's when that really graphic, artistic, peeling the skin off scene happens. I was like, okay, yep, now we're all of a sudden this has become graphic, gruesome, and depraved.
Yeah, it became like it went from like a Lifetime movie to like the Lifetime Mystery Movie
Yeah,
Network
it went
to
from a
like
movie you could see on TV to no, we cannot see this on TV in
yeah,
2
no,
seconds
it
flat.
was yeah, it was very strange to watch it just go from like do complete 180. Um yeah, it's definitely intense and just very strange and weird in certain sequences. I don't know. I feel like they might have played up the artsy part of it a little too much, maybe, and went a little bit too far with it and lost it a little bit. But whatever.
Yeah. And the music in that scene does a good job of like portraying his like uncontrollable urge because like it's this pounding beat that just gets faster and faster and it's like, yeah, he can't control himself, like he just has to do
Right.
it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, once it sort of verges on that weird like sexualization of the brutality, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, now we're crossing into really gross, uncomfortable territory.
Yeah. And I feel like there's got to be like one or two of those a year probably that come out, and this is like one of those you know, that just they do it just to do it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And from there, like it just ramps up in terms of the brutality and like I said, becomes extremely intense. And I
Yes.
just, as I was watching it, I just wrote down major trigger warning for the physical beatings that he gives these women with look like just a random log that was in their room. I was like, what the fuck? Did he bring that
Yeah,
in? Or was there like
I
a
don't know where
fireplace
that
in their room or something?
yeah, I don't know where that came from. I don't
It was,
remember seeing him sneak in through the window with it in his hand
yeah.
or come in with it, but
So
okay, we got a
you
log.
have that, and then it goes to like this. He's strangling, like physically strangling them with his hands. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
and then
Do you see them like crawling out with like half beaten head? Like
and then
that's
he's
pretty rough.
like you get the close up of him biting them, and then obviously, like we mentioned, the rape as she's begging for her mum to help her, and then
Yeah.
he starts smelling her underpants and
Yeah,
masturbating over the dead bodies. I was like, okay, yeah, this is
it's a it wasn't necessary.
it's a lot. It's definitely a lot.
Yeah, there's just I yeah, it's gross. Like you feel gross after watching it.
Which I
Like
think was
it's
the point of this movie. You weren't supposed to walk
yeah.
out of it and go, oh, yeah,
Okay,
that
cool,
happened.
whatever.
I think you were supposed to watch
Yeah.
this and be like, yeah, he was fucked up. He needed to die.
Yeah, I think it took it a bit to the extreme. I don't,
Yeah, it didn't need to go as far as it did to make me think that.
no, absolutely not. Like the crimes are horrific and anybody can go online and like research it and you can see the crime scene photos and stuff like that. There's ways of finding them, but to like portray that in cinema and just there is no trigger warning on this movie. Like I kind of wish that certain movies, especially like the more like artsy film festival ones, I wish that they would start putting trigger warnings on them because if you're just going into it like I did, where I'm like, all right, it's another Ted Bundy movie, whatever. I've seen like a million different things about
That's what I
him,
did too. And then when I watched it, I was like, oh,
right.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I feel like there needs to be like some kind of accountability where they're just like, hey, BT dubs, like this is the mat like source material. It's definitely amped up. Please, proceed with caution, because like books come with trigger warnings, and so like I don't understand why they can't just like throw that in there really quick.
Yeah, it just had to be like one of those black screen white text things at the start of the movie, like, hey, this is going to be incredibly intense and it's going to touch on, it's going to like
Different,
not just touch on it,
yeah.
it's going to graphically show
It depicts
some
like
of the
sexual
things that
assault.
he's done.
Right. Like, I mean, Jackass comes with a warning. Like, these stunts are performed by professionals or retards that don't, that are okay with doing this. Like,
Yeah, don't try this
don't try this at home. So I feel like there are certain movies that have come out now that probably need a trigger warning. Like Terrifier 3 is going to probably need a trigger warning. That's not going to get one, but,
yeah,
that's
I guess
expected out of a movie like that.
yeah, I guess with Terrifier 3 they can get away with not having a trigger warning because it's
Anybody who's going to see the third one, you've seen
you,
it.
you know what's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah,
But a
it's like
movie
Human
like this
Centipede.
probably
Like,
should have had one.
Right, yeah, it's like any of those ones that are just like progressive in a series, like Saw, Terrifier, Human Centipede, all of those ones. You've seen the first one, you know what's going to happen. But this standalone film, it just like a little bit of a warning would have been fantastic ahead of this, just so people aren't going into it thinking it's going to be another Ted Bundy kind of movie. Yeah, because I don't recall watching any serial killer miniseries movie, anything like that, that's been this artistically intense, or visually.
This is a serial killer movie turned up to 200%.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
During that like final rampage, it almost gets to the point of like feeling like a snuff film. It's like, oh Jesus.
Yeah, it is extremely. It's extremely rough watch, and I can't. It kind of, for me, it kind of almost ruined it for me a little bit, the movie, because I did thoroughly enjoy where they were going with it. Showing his tendencies, like slightly showing his tendencies, and just like hinting to like how psychotic he actually is, and how violent he has the potential of becoming. But when you get to like the finale and stuff like that, in that final act, it's kind of just like, oh, okay, great. You went from being somewhat good to just full out balls to the walls, ridiculous.
Yeah, I think like even like that artistic scene where she's pulling the skin off her own face and stuff.
Ugh.
I think we would have been fine with that if it hadn't gone to him having sex with the body parts.
Yeah, like
it was just that one little bit that just tipped it too far.
Yeah, because I was watching it and I was like, all right, whatever, like this is like his hallucination, she's peeling her skin off, whatever, and then it just went to like him finger fucking her throat, and I'm like,
just that one bit was just like a little bit too far. Like, ooh.
Yeah, and then I was like, what?
From there
what
on,
did
at that point you're already offside, so then when it gets to the finale, I'm already offside, and now you're taking it even further. I'm like, okay,
yeah, I just there are certain things that
I can see why you almost went, I'm done.
Yeah, because it's just there's certain things that just don't need to be portrayed in that manner. Like I've seen plenty of movies where it is implied that something happens to someone and it's terrible, but it is just implied. Like they pan away and they move away from that, and then it's either the next morning or it's like a different scene, or they shoot to a different character. And that's fine, whatever, you do you, and I appreciate that, because you're not full on showing the sexual assault. But when you are implying sexual assault and then you show it not in its entirety, because they're not like fully showing it, but what's happening because her body is vigorously shaking on a bed and she's screaming for her mom and she's crying, so like what's happening, and it's just not necessary to have that there.
Yeah, I think it was like crying out for her mum, which pushed it over. I think if like the camera had gone outside the room and you just heard some of the noises,
like if they had painted,
and it wouldn't be as bad. But it's because it's that extreme close up of her face as it's happening, and you can see the like terror and sadness in her face. Like, oh jeez. So,
and it's not
like acting
it's not quick.
Good in those moments, but the rest of the movie, they're not great.
Well, yeah, and like it's not a quick sequence either. It's different if like it's like a very short panned out, okay, this is what's happening, whatever. No, this was from start to finish like a full on like 5-minute sequence of this happening to her, and it's just not, it's a lot to take in. It
lingers for quite a while.
Yeah,
but like I said, like the acting performances are pretty good in like those moments where you feel that terror and that emotion.
Absolutely.
But the other scenes, like just like the general scenes, at the start when he's like flirting with the girl through the car window, that's fine. At the bar, the acting becomes a bit poor. And
yeah, it's like forced.
The ADR of like them talking in the bar, and there's a few other moments where there's ADR used. It's really bad. Like,
yeah,
the budget is obvious in those moments. Like, it's some of the poorest ADR, apart from Madame Web, whose ADR is absolutely atrocious. Like it doesn't even sync up to the lips.
Nope.
This one, it's obviously the same dialogue that they said in the actual scene, but because it was filmed in a bar and there's all that noise and stuff, they've gone back and done ADR to get clearer voices.
Right.
Too clear and too clean, so it doesn't fit.
Nope. You can't even tell that they're like in a bar at that point. At some points, like it's just too crisp, and it's just not. It's not good. It's very like forced. There's no like. I hate to say chemistry, but like regardless of the kind of movie, you have to have chemistry with like between characters to make it work, and that's just not there at all. It just feels very like robotic.
It's clearly like 3 or 4 individual tracks all filmed separately and then cut together.
Yeah, and it just doesn't flow. There's no flow to it whatsoever. It's not organic at all.
And because they've all been recorded in like a sound studio, there is no background noise. No. And it's not really layered with the background noise from the actual cut. It's just like
right.
The background noise is turned all the way down, and then it's just this crisp, clear voice over the top of it. It's like, oh, it's clearly pulling me out of that scene because it doesn't match at all.
Yeah, it's very odd, to say the least.
So, yeah,
very odd.
It's fun. I think obviously the budget of this, I wasn't expecting, like just looking at the movie from the outset before we even started, I wasn't expecting this is going to be like Oscar-winning best movie of the year type stuff.
No.
So I didn't go in with high expectations, but there were moments where I was like, okay, I expected a bit more than this.
Yeah. Especially with the fact that they did decide to include some artistic sequences with like flashbacks and like these different moments. Like it just isn't, it's not consistent. Like you either have a poor budget movie that looks poor budgeted all the way through and through, or you have a decently budgeted movie that looks okay all the way through. This was very like splotchy in scenes, it looks really good in some spots and then in other spots it looks like shit. So I don't really get it. It's not.
And there's like bits that are like, oh, that's a really interesting spin on this story, and then there's other bits I'm like, oh, I didn't need that. That's bad.
Also, like as an actor, like I mean, kudos to all of the actors and actresses in this movie because I feel like I could not have been a part of that movie had they asked me to be a part of this movie. I probably would have been like, thanks, but hard pass, no, thank you, because I probably would have been emotionally scarred and. It just does things to you, probably like getting into that mindset of having to portray, not even having to portray Bundy, because honestly, like he was a psycho, and anybody who agrees to portray someone like that knows what they're getting into. But like the people who had to play the victims of it, if they just went into it thinking it's going to be a Bundy movie, and then they started reading the screen or the script for it, and they're just like, oh shit, what the fuck did I sign up for? Kind of moment. That would have been it for me.
Yeah, well done to them to be able to do that, and I hope came out of it untraumatized.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus Christ! Watching it, you would think that they would have had to have like some kind of like therapist on set, counselor, anything for potential possible trauma that might stem from it. So,
and then I watched it about a week ago now, so I'm not 100% sure, but it closed with archival footage of like the trial and everything, didn't it?
I believe so. Yeah. It's been a minute since I watched it as well. I think that is how it ended, which is that's fine. I enjoy when movies integrate like trial footage and stuff like that, like when they slice in real life footage from what they were portraying on screen. That's always cool to me.
Yeah, it's always a great way to like wrap it up and like in real life he did get his comeuppance, but So in terms of a rating, what would you give The Black Mass out of 5?
It's probably is gonna be like a 2 for me, almost a 1 probably, because I almost DNF'd it. It's definitely not something I'll ever go back to. I don't see myself recommending it to anybody unless I know that they can handle that kind of stuff. Like, I put it this way, it is meant for a very select audience. It is not meant for everybody. It's going to be meant for like probably film students is a good suggested audience for this, like people who want to study film and art and stuff like that. Sure. Anybody who's in psychology, maybe if they're studying serial killers and they want to see a different take on it, cool. But it's not something that I would ever go back to, and it's not something that I would tell people to go watch, probably, unless, like I said, unless I know that that's what they're into and they can watch movies like that without either getting upset or feeling some kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah, like I thought it was entertaining, but like we said, it takes it a little bit too far at times.
Yes.
I think the first like half hour is great. It gives you a great sense of who Bundy was, what messed up shit was going on in his head. But then once that violence kicks in and becomes extreme and depraved, that's when it just took it too far for me. So I gave this a 2 out of 5 as well. I was much higher on it up until that artsy skin tearing scene, and then that brought it back a notch. And then the next violent moments in the rampage at the end brought it back even further, just because it just took it too far for me, and was like we said, I said verging on feeling like a snuff film at times, like, oh, too far.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely don't go into it thinking it's a serial killer movie, because as much as it is not. Definitely, like I said, trigger warnings all over. If you have any issues with sexual assault whatsoever, don't watch it or stop it before the final sequence, just because it's just not, it's intense. It's intense. And
it's no like Seven or anything, or Long Legs or anything like that. It's much more extreme. This is much more towards the cannibal Holocaust realm.
Actually, as much of a movie buff as I am, I've actually never watched Cannibal Holocaust because I've heard it's such a rough watch.
I would say it's intense and visceral and violent.
Yeah.
But not as intense as this.
So yeah, this and like I said, for me, this movie is like as bad as I Spit on Your Grave and Raw Dogs, I think is the other movie that I was thinking of when I watched this. So yeah, because like I Spit on Your Grave is all about women's revenge because she got brutally sexually assaulted by like 4 different people.
I think it's that element that just takes it that little bit further in terms of the emotional weight. Like, Cannibal Holocaust, it's cannibals in the Amazon,
right? Isn't that like Green Inferno too? I think that was like another movie that was like that.
Yeah, at one point. I watched them both. I watched them back to back because like Green Inferno is inspired by Cannibal Holocaust. But
okay, then I don't need to watch the other one then, because I watched Green Inferno.
Yeah, it's Eli Roth's take on Cannibal Holocaust.
Gotcha.
So yeah, like it's that, like cannibalism. It's pretty messed up, but that shit has happened throughout history. It's just that sexual assault element, and specifically this one, those close-ups, and really focusing on the trauma that they're going through.
Right.
Like, obviously the action is bad, but it's that focus on the trauma that they're dealing with is what tipped this over the edge for me of being too far.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking to watch stuff that's scared about Ted Bundy, go find the really old Ted Bundy movie that had the guy from NCIS in it. Go watch the Ted Bundy tapes. Those are
even the Zac Efron one I thought was pretty decent.
Yeah, I think that those are better options for this kind of stuff versus this particular movie, just because none of those films had that. They touched upon the sexual assault, but they never what's the good word, like I'm looking, like glamorized it, I guess is a good word, because I feel like in this movie they're almost doing that, you know.
Yeah, I do hope like the Ryan Murphy Monsters series like continues, and
they do other ones. They do other series.
Like, the Dharma one was fantastic. The first episode of the Menendez brothers is pretty good. Obviously, I haven't finished it, but we'll see how it continues. And I'm really looking forward to the Ed Gein one because Charlie Hunnam is great.
Yeah. I'm gonna start Monsters probably. Sometime this weekend probably is when I'm gonna watch it, and I'll probably just binge it all because that's what I do. I binge everything. So yeah, well, we'll see.
Alrighty. So thank you for listening to the Commentary Booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow Corrina on Instagram at Miss Corrina Renee, and you can follow me on social media at Jamie Apps Media and at Pario Magazine. The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.